Hello and welcome to the TripOn podcast, in which we combine architecture, entertainment and urban life. My name is Lee.
My name is Alex, and we're an architect and themed entertainment professional who travel a lot, and we're also interested in urban development and attractions.
And if you want to get an impression of what we saw during this experience, check out our Instagram at TripOn Podcast. And this is a new episode in the series Entertainment. We are going to talk this time about Global Village, something that we already mentioned in the last episodes. So if you really want to have some background about Global Village also from another perspective, you should definitely listen to the episodes about IMG and MotionGate. First of all, let's talk about the trail of our last visit. Last time we were talking about MotionGate Dubai. MotionGate is, just as a really quick recap, it is a theme park in Dubai. Can you also tell a bit, Alex, what was it about?
Yeah, it's a park with amazing IPs and beautiful indoor DreamWorks area. As we mentioned before, it's super nicely laid out and has a beautiful and high-end theming. So we would definitely recommend you to check our episode.
So when I thought about it a bit more, I think one thing that is hurting MotionGate a lot is its location. I think this park could have been so much more successful if it was located way closer to the city, but also if the location would have been more logical in connection to the public transport of the city, because I think the park is not really getting the attention that it deserves. I don't know how you noticed that, Alex, but I notice a lot that MotionGate and the Dubai Parks and Resorts group, they don't actually get attention at all in Dubai. You don't see any posters, you don't see promotions. I have the feeling that something like Global Village is much more known amongst everyone.
Yes, and I have the feeling that the Global Village is visited way more often, and people actually really go there. From all the friends that we know, they've been there at least once.
I'm going to read something. I'm paraphrasing a little bit because it's not all literal. It will include 25 distinct districts, master plans offering entertainment, sports, culture with mixed-use areas, residential communities, and nature. It will have stunning natural landscapes, which will ultimately become its most unique hallmark. It will have 400 plus tourist attractions, offer 325k permanent jobs. It will have 25 lively, fun, and diverse neighborhoods for everyone, young and old. It will be 360 square kilometers. And it will be home to an estimated 48 million visitors per year. 27 attractions, 275 rides and thrills, and 12 branded theme parks, of which one Six Flags, a water park, and a Dragon Ball theme park. What am I talking about?
Dubai Parks and Resorts.
No, this is...
The Dubai Land, yeah?
This is Qiddiya City. This is a city that they are building in the desert in Saudi Arabia. And this will have a Six Flags. So what I wanted to do is let you know that this whole Dubai Land thing that happened in the past and that eventually didn't go through, they are actually doing it right now in Saudi. They are really building it. Most of the coasters are already standing. It's almost a carbon copy of what we talked about in Dubai. And the interesting thing is that they are talking about 48 million visitors per year. And we know that Dubai Parks and Resorts has been struggling. So my question to you was, what do you expect from something like this? Like, now you have been in Dubai, now we visited this park. Like, do you think that this has a chance to succeed?
It's hard to say, but from what we've experienced, the projects are way overscaled and the ambition is maybe too big. So looking into Dubai, some things are designed in a way that they are not as popular as were meant to be, maybe. So I'm a bit afraid that this might be the same in case of Saudi, that their ambition is very high and they are really hoping to become new tourist destination. However, time will show. I think we'll just see. What is your view to it?
Well, to me, it's so ironic that we were discussing Dubai Land a couple of episodes ago, and that I started to look a little bit more into what is Qiddiya going to be, because I know people who work on Qiddiya. I've had a couple of conversations about it, and there's kind of two ideas about Qiddiya. One of them is like, oh, they're going to do the same as what Dubai tried, so they're going to fail. And there's another idea where people are saying, yes, but they're doing it for real. Like, they are really pulling this thing off. To give you a couple of extra numbers, it's 70 kilometers from the international airport, and it's 45 kilometers from the city center.
Honestly, when you started to read the text, I thought you were just reading some new article about Dubai. So it sounds ironic in a way.
Yeah, it's very ironic. And when you see the renders and you see, the parks that they are building.
Which year are they saying it might be ready?
For now, it's still set to open end of 2024, but most people are still saying it's going to be beginning of 2025. To me, it's very interesting to see, is this going to work? Is it a repetition of Dubai Land, or is it the actual, let's say, promised mega city that is going to do what it's supposed to do?
I think time will show.
Time will tell. It will be very interesting, especially for now, for us, because we are now familiar with the Dubai parks. And so basically, Six Flags in the Desert. We were not able to visit it because it was cancelled, but we will be able to visit it.
You might be soon, yes.
Who knows? There will be an episode in the future about our visit to Qiddiya. All right, so we talked about the thrill of our last visit. I think just to give you a little note, if you are interested in what we're already saying a couple of times now, the word Dubai Land, definitely give a listen to the IMG episode, but also the Motion Gate episode. There's so much there to look into because the thing that we're talking about now, the global village, is actually very strongly connected to Dubai Land. So to give you a bit of context, Dubai is normally, of course, a city where you can really experience nightlife. It's mostly often in clubs and in bars and stuff like that, which is a little bit more accessible for a particular audience. Because most of those clubs and the nightlife, it is very much aimed for tourism or for people with money, or it is ticketed, or there are famous DJs playing or artists playing. But there's also this other side of nightlife in Dubai. And I think Global Village kind of fits this image much more because there's more this family nightlife, I would say, where I have the feeling that here in the Middle East, especially in Dubai, from what we see, families actually live during the evening much more, and they are more outside because of the heat. And I think Global Village really fits this image. Can you explain a bit, Alex, what is Global Village and how do you think it fits in the culture here?
Global Village is a unique attraction in Dubai, where in one place you can spot 90 different cultures and they all come together. The place is a mix between shopping, dining, entertainment. Entrance fee is quite low, it's only 25 dirhams, and it makes the place relatively cheap and more accessible for families, I believe. But of course you're going to spend a lot more on shopping and food. And the place holds also shows, like we went to one show as well, the stunt show. So then you pay a little bit extra, but still it's quite relatively low fee for the show. I think it was also like 30 dirhams per person.
Yeah, so, exactly. Like the standard ticket is quite cheap actually.
Yeah, but it makes it a bit more exclusive. So you have a ticket, you enter, so it's not for everyone.
But there's also some ticketed attractions in there. So you have, for example, a walkthrough experience. There's, of course, rides there, but also there is a Ripley's Believe It or Not. So there are a couple of options there.
The whole funfair area as well.
Yeah, the funfair area. There's also this climbing structure for kids. To place it into context, I have the feeling that Global Village is much more comparable to a city park, a city amusement park, let's say, where you have a cheaper ticket to actually gain entrance to it. And then you spend much more on the per ride prices that you have. So in this case, you have actually a credit system. But also, in our case, we actually chose to not eat so much during the day because Global Village is known for it being much more about food and drinks. It's kind of like a tradition to go there and to have little bites and little snacks and little drinks and sweet stuff from all over the place because it is a cultural theme park.
Yeah, and it also has this street food culture. So you go to the pavilions or food trucks and you just walk around with some dishes from specific country that you just bought it in the pavilion.
Yeah. So this is also maybe the reason why you cannot really call Global Village a classic theme park. It's not comparable to any of the other ones that we have visited because those entrance fees are much higher. And I think, for me, ironically, it's one of the best places to actually walk around in the evening in Dubai because you are spending easily multiple hours in a row there just because it's so big.
And what is interesting, it's opened at the evening till 2 a.m. So you can stay till quite late. And it was surprising because we've seen lots of kids staying till the very end.
Yeah, it really fits this image of family entertainment. I think even more than some of the other parks that we mentioned earlier, because those are much more classic. They also close earlier, and Global Village is just something that offers you the whole evening, the whole night, even entertainment.
Yeah, but I have the feeling some people also go to shop there because I've seen people with cards and they buy a lot of products, like regional products from different places because the quality of the products is quite high.
Yeah, I have to give a bit of background, and there is a slight need of correction. So in the IMG episode, we mentioned that Global Village was also part of the Dubai Land investment, and that it was also built already as one of the attractions. That needs a little bit of context because it's not so much that Global Village was part of the Dubai Land investment. Global Village already existed, but it got its fixed location through the Dubai Land project. So what happened was Global Village was already in Dubai. It was in some different locations already. So it was already more close to Old Town at some point. Then it moved to the Dubai Creek area. And it was one of the first things that was actually located on the plot of land that was supposed to become Dubai Land. And this happened in 2005. It was still kind of the old concept of Global Village, where in the beginning, when it started in 1997, it was a true yearly market where pavilions were actually organized every year based on new contracts. So it was a bit different from now. Every year, Global Village looked differently. Some pavilions were bigger, some were smaller, some were redesigned, some were added, some were taken away. And this actually continued for years, and it grew over the years. And at some point, it became so big that it got its permanent location in the Dubai Land plans, which means that Global Village has been one of the OG entertainment destinations from this plan.
And it's been a success because it's hosting around 6 million visitors.
Yeah, I will even tell you that 2023, it says that the record shows, of course, I don't know the trustworthiness of the sources, but that the number of visitors hit 9 million.
That's insane.
Which is really impressive.
And what also shows that the place is successful is the fact that normally it's opened only in specific period of time. They just announced that it's not going to be open till April, but they extended it by 1 month because it's so successful that they want to have it till May.
Yeah, exactly. So every year, actually, the operations of Global Village is changing. It's always based on the numbers. It's always based on what they're going to do. So also to explain, the current version of Global Village, so the one that we have visited right now, is the permanent one. So it's much more permanent than it used to be. You can also see that, it's much more permanently built. The pavilions have more like an architectural approach to them. Historically, a very, very early form of Global Village was already organized in 1997, which means that last year it was edition 26. So let's talk about the head, the heart, and the base. The head is the first impression which we're going to discuss. The heart is the very theme of the experience, of how we actually experienced Global Village after a couple of hours, and after we were spending there really the time and we're getting into the details. And then we go to the base, which is kind of the trail of the experience, of what we take away from it. So let's talk about the head. How was our day?
I think our day was amazing because we stayed pretty long. So first, when we arrived, it was quite crowded and the place was full of taxis and buses around. We got the ticket at the counter. It was already about to get dark, and we've chose the Gate of the World entrance, which is situated near Sheikh bin Zayed Road.
Yeah, because the Global Village has multiple entrances.
Yeah, we chose the main one.
Yeah, the main one.
The gate is white with gold finish on it.
It's very recognizable. I
It's-
think any of the photos, when you see Global Village in their promotional photos, you see this massive structure with all the towers and with all the crazy onion-shaped roofs.
Quite
That's the entrance.
recognizable, yeah. And apparently on special occasions, the gate is lit up in different colors. So to represent the celebrations of the moment and moments worth capturing. And I would say it definitely creates wow effect because it is quite grand and quite nicely lit when it gets dark.
Well, you know, the first thing already that we have to mention is when we arrived, it was golden hour. So, and that's also maybe one of the benefits of Global Village. It opens quite late, which means that you kind of you go there when the night is already setting in, and it's quite special, I have to say. Also, one of the reasons I think why it's so easily combinable with other experiences. So you can do something during the day, go to Global Village later. And I have to say, this entrance, to see that during golden hour, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, it's picturesque.
It's very iconic, I would say. It's one of the iconic buildings of Dubai.
Later on, after passing the gate, we were located at the square where you can see the replicas of all the famous buildings. Which buildings did you notice there?
I will just name a couple of the iconic landmarks that they built. You have the Statue of Liberty, you have the Elizabeth Tower, which is known as the Big Ben, Pisa Tower, Colosseum, Eiffel Tower, Sydney Opera House, Taj Mahal. It is incredibly ironic how much of Europe they actually show and how small the role of Europe is in the actual land pavilions, but it's really funny. So it is really recognizable, all the stuff that you see.
I would say my first impression was amazement with also a bit of surprise effect. And I wasn't really sure if the place is going to be very kitsch or what to really expect because, you know, all those replicas of the buildings, they are... You know it's not real in a way, so you don't know how serious the place is.
Yeah, we talk in this podcast a lot about theming quality. I think this theming quality is definitely from another standard in a way. But then again, it is also really well done. It's so recognizable. It's the scale is very big. It's quite impressive, I have to say. You know, you have those big pharaohs standing, you have the big towers on the side. And then the central plaza is quite green. Like there's a lot of grass.
Yeah.
It is supposed to be grass, I think, where people could sit down and picnic. But
some
I remember
of them do actually.
Yeah, there's quite
families.
some people making use. But I also remember that the first time that we were there, it was really dry. The grass was almost dead. So I have the feeling that it does take some extra work for them to keep everything nice and green because it's so busy also. So people probably kill the grass quite easily.
Yeah, but I was surprised because people bring their own blankets or even carpets and they sit with the whole families there.
Yeah, that's true. It is really, like I said, it's one of the nicest places I think in Dubai to roam around, you know, to be pedestrian.
I was there also during Ramadan now, and I have to say the decoration for Ramadan is really charming with the moon, stars. It's a bit like Christmas feel to us, but it's for them. And I think it was also much more fitting the atmosphere. Yeah. Although during the Ramadan there were no live performances because it was a bit more limited. Yeah. So of course
everything's a bit toned down.
Yes.
Yeah, so let's explain a little bit the layout of the park. So the main street, let's say, where you come in, it's not really a place that you go back to. That's more, I think, the place where you end the day and where you start the day. It's actually quite straightforward. You have the very big central plaza. There's also the big main stage in the back of it. So it's kind of laid out as a festival, like an event space terrain. And just all around you, the best way to describe it is just massive facades. Really, really big facades, all in this typical iconic Global Village style. So it's very cliche almost. So the way that they indicate which pavilion you're looking at is just by taking very stereotypical elements or characteristics from this country and just blowing it up in front of the pavilion. And it's all of the countries around the Emirates, definitely.
And Asia, I would say there's way more focus on Asian countries. And then there is another division for continents. So there is Africa, America, Europe, and other pavilions.
A little bit tucked away in the corner, there's more the fun fair with all the carnival rides. Then there is a couple of standalone attractions that have a separate ticket, like Ripley's Believe It or Not. There's the Neon Galaxy, which is a play area for kids. There's mini golf. There's Mini World. Mini World is like just an area with miniatures, so like very iconic miniatures like the Taj Mahal and Statue of Liberty and Colosseum and that kind of stuff. There is the really big Cyber City stunt show area, also ticketed separately. Quite impressive, I have to say. We did this stunt show the first time we were there, and this stunt show is making use of a lot of cars and motorcycles and lights and fire and lasers, and it's the typical stunt show, I think.
Once you enter the pavilions, you get into the specific country, and then we had lots of food, and like, for example, we had mussels, mini Dutch pancakes, mochi, some Korean snacks, bubble tea, sushi, fresh squeezed pomegranate juice, which was delicious.
Noodles.
Nuts, yes. And
coffee.
And amazing thing is the fact that you can also try a lot, because the sellers, they are encouraging you to buy it, or they are encouraging you just to try it, and you can just pick things and have a taste of it, and then if you really like it, you can go for it and buy it. Yeah. So it's cool because it's a bit different, and even you get the taste of each country a bit, and you can see what kind of products are popular there, or what do they focus on.
Yeah, I wanted to go through a couple of things that stood out to me during our time there, because I have the feeling that the kind of the setup of Global Village, the sizes of the pavilions, the way that everything is depicted, it really says a lot about Dubai as a city. Because, for example, what is the largest pavilion here?
In Global Village?
Yeah.
I would say one of the biggest one was Iran.
The biggest by far is India.
Oh, India. Oh, yes, of course.
And it's so, it totally makes sense, because the Indian community in Dubai is very big. Plus, I think the Indian community visiting Global Village is massive.
Okay, that's true.
I have the feeling that there were so many Indian families in Global Village, and it shows you kind of like a perspective on Dubai as a city, because a really, really big pavilion was India. Another really big pavilion, like you mentioned, was Iran. Also, the pavilion of China is very large, mainly because of the Chinese sellers that are able to stand there. It was completely full. But what is a bit ironic is that they have a pavilion called the Americas, and they just put everything that is in both the Americas in there.
But on the inside, it's mostly huge outlet place, and they just sell like brands which are on the discounted prices. This was very strange. So how do they see the US? It's outlets.
Yeah, outlets. And also, what was bothering us was the pavilion Europe, which wasn't really European at all from the inside.
No,
it's already quite funny that they just call it Europe, and they're fine with that, even though it's so many different countries combined. And then once we were inside, there was a bit of stuff from England, and there was a bit of French brands, but that's it. There was no good European food or European drinks or...
No, not really. Also, I was quite disappointed by the Russian pavilion, because there's quite some Russian community in Dubai, but the pavilion, okay, you could buy some matryoshka or some little souvenir like made in Russia, but it was all a bit, again, kitsch.
Yeah, very kitsch. Yeah, I think, honestly, from an historic perspective, when it started, from what I understood, is that the countries actually contributed. And I have the feeling that right now it's much more based on square meterage and tenants that are just renting square meterage to sell. It's not so much based anymore on the particular pavilions as it used to be. So, for example, in Europe, there's no real European tenants anymore there. I think it's mostly tenants that are just doing something that is a little bit European, or maybe along the lines of something that fits, but it doesn't really fit the pavilion anymore.
True. That's why I think we felt better in the Gulf countries, because they felt way more authentic, and the sellers were from those specific countries. Many people I asked who were selling to us where are you from? And they were actually from the country that they were representing. So it felt much better. Like they could tell you more about the place, or about the product.
It's more a place to, in one day, get to experience the Middle East than to get to experience global. It's not so much about the world. I think it's much more authentic when it comes to the Middle East.
Yeah, but I kind of liked it because we could see differences between the cultures. Like, for example, in clothing style, dresses, every pavilion, like Bahrain and Saudi, Emirates, they had different clothing styles. And all of them next to each other, you could really spot differences in the fashion or in the products. Like, all of the places are quite known from dates, but they serve them differently and they make different things. Same with coffee, Arabic coffee, but in every country, they add a bit different spices and it tastes differently.
And it's a slightly different version.
Yeah, so this was very nice to have this comparison next to each other.
Yeah, then another thing that we have to mention is that there is a main stage in Global Village, but there is actually also throughout all the pavilions much more live entertainment throughout the evening, because what happens is that there's many little stages and on those smaller stages in the pavilions they also have their own program for live entertainment. So there's often dancers or singers or musicians. In general, I think they're coming a couple of times per evening, so I would say 3 to 5 shows. And it's actually very different from pavilion to pavilion to see what they are doing. So, for example, in many of the the Arabic pavilions, there's much more traditional music or singing. But we also saw a K-pop group dancing in the Korean pavilion, which is really funny to see. And it's quite interesting to just walk somewhere and to have like the music from that particular country blasting from the little stage over there. It does a lot to the atmosphere, I have to say. It's really cool to experience. And I noticed during the evening, and I think you also did, that it was just getting more and more busy over time. It was really, really crazy at some point. It was so busy that it was difficult to walk through the pavilions.
Yeah, and I was also surprised that the kids, they were not tired and they were keeping up.
They kept on coming.
Yeah, till the very last hour.
Yeah, it's like, for me, it's a 180-degree difference with what we experienced in both IMG and in Motion Gate. It was just gradually getting fuller and fuller and fuller, and it just shows how well this concept works in a city like Dubai. And actually, we ended the day at some point just by taking a taxi. There is a very well organized taxi situation right in front of Global Village. There's literally, I would even say, maybe hundreds of taxis that are driving there every evening to get people back to where they need to go.
To get there, you can easily go by bus, but it takes quite some time. It's a bit more difficult to go back because around 2 a.m. not all the buses are going. So then
I think at night you're pretty much only able to get anywhere with taxis.
Much easier,
Yeah, so to get to, let's get to the base, the trail. So what do we take from this experience? I really think that this is an attraction that you can go back to.
Yeah, like we did.
Yeah, it's really something that you experience and you think, at least that's what we had, is that you at some point think, maybe let's go to Global Village. You know, it's such a great way to spend the evening. I really like the fact that it's open late. The temperature is getting nicer during the evening. Plus, it is very beautiful at night. It's really nice to see it at night.
I think it looks better by night with how the facades are lit than during the day.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. But definitely you can learn a lot about the cultures, explore it, smell, taste it. Visually, you can touch things, fabrics, it's amazing. You can also talk to people like we've mentioned.
And it's also quite interesting to see so many different products in one location.
Yeah, it is of course highly commercial experience, but it definitely leaves the trail in you.
But that's the thing, you don't have to buy anything. You can just go and look.
But it's difficult. They are good sellers.
It is difficult to not buy anything. But it is really impressive to see that some of the pavilions are actually designed really well and they look very nicely organized, beautiful shops, beautiful way of presenting the products. Some pavilions are very chaotic and very basic. There's such a difference between those different pavilions. But for example, if you go to Iran and you have those beautiful silk carpets, many of the fabrics are really, really amazing. Obviously, you're gonna pay much more here than you would in any regular market, or maybe even in Old Town in Dubai. But from the other side, I have the feeling that many people who go here actually don't even mind. They just go and they spend money anyways.
You also have all the products in one place, so it's a bit more convenient. But
Yeah.
this leads to my question. What did you bring with you from the Global Village? What did you purchase?
Well, there is this one thing that we often talk about in theme park theory, and that's called transformation. Transformation can happen in a lot of ways, and one of the things is that it could make you do something. And I definitely did buy some stuff. So what I actually bought was a silk carpet from Iran. It's just a visual spectacle, to be honest. Like, they have all those carpets lying around there. They are able to show you any size, any
And
shape.
they're so detailed.
It's so beautiful in terms
Yeah.
of colors and the lighting, and it would be very difficult for anyone to come and not try anything, because there's also just such a wide plethora of products that you can try. You can try anything from a hamburger to Japanese ice cream. It's incredible what you can find there. It's pretty chaotic.
You can also negotiate, so it
Yeah.
gives you this
It
market vibe.
it turns you on, basically. It makes you energetic. There's quite a lot of life around you, especially when those dances are happening or singing is happening, or when the main stage is being used. There is this kind of like this atmosphere of a festival.
And some products are not that easily available somewhere else. Like, for example, I bought shea butter from Africa, and it's just pure natural.
When you visit, for example, the Africa pavilion, the products there, you will only find there. There is a clear distinction between certain pavilions. When it comes to food, I think it was a bit more flexible. All right, so let's talk about the experience from our professional point of view. Of course, Alex is an architect. I'm a themed entertainment professional. The interesting thing is that both of those things are very much represented here in Global Village. I do have to mention that actually what is interesting is that Global Village has been always developing. That's what I like about this concept. It's not a very hard architecture. It's much more based on set building. So it is much more semi-permanent construction. So there's much more, I think, an opportunity for them to be flexible, to move some things around. So what I found is that the current version of Global Village, when it was built in 2005, it was even built completely different from what it looks like now. The pavilions have all been taken down and rebuilt already. So the version that you see now is so different from 10 years ago. And the Central Plaza was somewhere around 2013, like massively increased. Like, they took away all the pavilions on one side and they rebuilt them, but much further away, which kind of shows that this place is kind of organically growing with its visitor numbers. And that's an interesting fact, which for me already makes it interesting to also keep on visiting this place in the future, just to see like what changed, what is different, what is better maybe.
I think what is also interesting to mention was the river area and the boats that were on the river.
Yeah, the floating market.
The floating market, which was representing a bit more of a Thailand or Bangkok floating market.
What's also really funny in Global Village is they have some bridges, and there is a little version of the Tower Bridge in London. There's also some statues that we recognize from some countries. So Global Village is kind of like a compilation of typical landmarks or the architecture that you could find in a particular country, but it's not built in an authentic way. It is interesting because it actually is a phenomenon that is quite well known. Can you tell about that, Alex?
Yes, so what we're looking in here, it's a term called in architecture mimetic, or also architecture of novelty. And it is a programmatic approach to building design. The building is shaped to mimic or copy the function. usually a business function, or to suggest some objects that we associate with the function. We could give some examples maybe to make it a little bit more clear. What example comes to your mind to describe it the best?
Well, you can kind of say that a very clear version of mimetic architecture is, for example, the roadside architecture, where buildings were trying to capture the attention of people in cars. So it has to be big and it has to be shouty and it has to be very clear. Like, for example, a donut shop could place a really big donut on top of the roof. And that's kind of shouting towards the people in the cars, like, here you can buy snacks, here you can buy donuts.
Yeah, and what is also interesting about this particular style is that it doesn't have to mimic the existing building, but it also can mimic the object and show, for example, what could be the function of the building inside. And the example that I have in mind is Piano House. I don't know if you've heard about it, in China. The building represents a piano and a violin linked to it. And the piano is supported on the huge concrete pillars and houses two large concert halls. So it's very explicit.
Yeah, another example that I can immediately think of is the headquarters of a famous basket manufacturing company, which is basically the shape of a big basket.
But do you know why the company chose the basket as a image for their company?
No.
So the shape is the replica of the company's best-selling product.
Yes.
They were selling these baskets, and then they decided to represent their company by it. That's
really that's really shouty and very clear. Another place I think where you would find this type of architecture very strongly is Las Vegas, where there's even the replicas of the famous landmarks. So you have a Colosseum, you have an Eiffel Tower, you have the Venetian.
Yes, it's kind of like in Global Village, but on the bigger scale.
Yeah, in Global Village they even have all of those, right? You have the Big Ben, you have the Colosseum, you have even there's a little Taj Mahal over there.
And it's quite of a game. We just enjoyed walking around. But
which one did you like the most? That's an interesting question, actually. The Iranian one is the most classy one for me.
Yeah, it's quite of a photo op in front of it, and maybe also the way to it is nice because there is a little river and you have to go through the bridge, so it creates a bit more of an experience.
Yeah, we were a little bit disappointed by Dubai.
Yes, like I've said, it's a little bit flat because they just place famous images of the buildings like Museum of the Future, Burj Al Arab, or, for example, Burj Khalifa on the facade. So it's
almost like a postcard, like a compilation.
It's more 2D image of what is in Dubai, kind of postcard or magnet, exactly. But Iranian facade, as a contrast, is more a facade. I don't know if it's an existing facade, but it looks like a building.
It's more like a building that you could find in Iran.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting, this one, because it's one of bigger ones. And also we liked it that it was three-dimensional. Okay. Which one else comes to your mind?
I honestly did enjoy the one from Korea.
Mm-hmm.
That was very beautiful because it had the bridge with the figures on it, the people on it in traditional clothing. And I think there were figures banging a drum also on the Korean one. Then the Japanese one is very epic because you see a samurai with a samurai sword in his hand. So also very recognizable. I think the one that is probably the most funny to me is the one from the Americas. You see Native Americans, you see tipis, you see an eagle, you see, it's so, and you see cowboys and guns and stuff. Yeah. So it's like a very, very on the edge, wrong depiction of the Americas in a way. But also I think the Russian one is quite nice from the front. It's pretty beautiful. And I think it's just really funny to see the way that those countries are depicted because it kind of shows you how it's seen by people in this particular part of the world.
What is the association with the country? What is also interesting is, of course, not only the facades, but what it has to offer on the inside. So once we were entering the pavilion, we were mainly in the courtyard, and it is laid out in a way that you can mostly walk around. The layouts are quite repetitive. Sometimes you really can lose yourself and feel like you're in the specific country or local market, and sometimes you know it's just imitation of it or a replica.
Yeah. Yeah, I have the feeling that overall, actually, Global Village is laid out pretty well. It is really inviting you to go and explore.
Yeah, and honestly, I didn't feel overstimulated in the place. You don't feel like it's too much that you need to get out of there.
It is quite straightforward, I would
Yeah,
say, you
you
know?
can kind of lose yourself.
Yeah. So let's go and talk about room for improvement. This is the point where we generally discuss what could actually really be done to make it more enjoyable and to really improve the experience. So to start off, I would like to see less franchising food outlets overall, because there's some of those franchising outlets that are just repeating over and over and over and over again. I would just like to see less repetition in general. Just be a bit more concentrated about this stuff. So, for example, when you have a place which is selling Thai seafood, don't repeat 6 times a Thai seafood food truck throughout the whole place. Just place it in the Asian street, you know?
Yeah,
Just,
that's a good point, to be more consistent
yeah,
with
be more
the
consistent.
F&B.
Also, the franchising ones, they are actually the ones that you can find anywhere. So they are least interesting, I would say.
Yeah, and to give more space for actual local sellers. So maybe more alternative sellers and regional products instead of chains and
Yeah.
some stores.
Yeah, I still have a hard time seeing the real Emirates culture, for example. I think also the Emirates pavilion wasn't so strong to me. I would like to see more clear image of what is the real culture of the Emirates. Maybe return and go back more to the design intent. So we always talk in the podcast about the design intent, which basically means that you design it with a certain usage in mind, with a certain way of operating it in mind. And then, of course, you want to see the operation of it in practice also as it was designed. If it isn't used like it was designed, you often kind of notice that. You feel that it's off. And I have the feeling that here, the original design intent was very much to have those land pavilions and to have those pavilions be very separate and be very specific, so that it's all concentrated within the location where you would expect it. And for example, Europe needs to have more significance. There should be Italian pizza. There should be, there should be particular European stuff. There is very interesting food and drinks and bites and stuff coming from Europe, also products. I would really like to see that to revive again.
Definitely, I would focus a bit more on the European pavilion, but maybe it's because, we had high expectations to it, and that's why we would like it to be a bit more authentic.
What I mean is that ironically, there is pizza, but they just don't sell it in Europe.
Yeah, or there were Dutch mini pancakes, but they were also just in the
They
general
were standing in front
zone.
of Korea. Yeah, so for me, that's a pity, because you're shying away from the original design intent. So either you do that, but you have to change the design and approach to it, or you stick to the design intent. But if you're in between like this, it just feels off. You feel that it was not meant to be like that.
It should be more consistent.
Yeah. Another point is better communication when it comes to the live shows. So I did notice that it was pretty difficult to figure out where what show would be. I think it is now done in a very flimsy way. In many pavilions, they just hang a paper, and in some papers is even written on it by black marker when the shows are. I would say make it easy for every pavilion to just show on a little screen at the entrance of the pavilion when there's going to be live shows. Make it an automated system, like digital.
Yeah, or maybe have it on some web page, just written what time are the shows in specific pavilions, so you're able to visit them in a particular time. But like this, you had to be in the pavilion to find out in most of the cases.
Yeah, I have the feeling even that they just changed it during the evening.
Depending on how the night was going. Also in the pavilions, just next to F&B points or places where you have food trucks, maybe there could be a bit more arranged seating. It was generally quite clean, but with more enclosed seating, with more pleasant
Maybe more space in some
space.
pavilions.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes it was lacking a bit.
Korea was way too popular for its size,
Mm-hmm.
especially when they were doing dancing with the K-pop group and stuff like that. But another point that I would like to make is viewpoints.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't there better viewpoints? Because honestly, Global Village it's really impressive, and it's especially impressive to overlook Global Village, to see it from a higher vantage point, and have the feeling that that's just not really possible. The only way to see it is from the big wheel, on the carnival. But that's not something that everyone likes, to be in a little cabin like that. So it would be great to have a bit more options of viewpoints over Global Village.
Maybe a tower or some...
Or a tower, like a viewing tower or something. Yeah, exactly. Or maybe even a restaurant or a bar with a big terrace or something. I think people would actually be willing to pay a little bit more just to have a drink and to have a view over Global Village, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, it's a good point, because the area is super impressive and it's quite big. So
yeah. And then another point for room for improvement is the wanderers. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Do you mean the mascots?
Yeah.
Of the park?
So the Global Village has actually a group of mascots which are called the Wanderers. And from what I could find it is Walif, Zoya, Aya, Ozka, and they are, from what I can see, I think it is a wolf, a cat, a bird, like a falcon, and I have no idea what this is. Look.
A hamster or a ferret?
Yeah, or a wombat.
Wombat, maybe, yeah.
So the thing is that Global Village has a group of mascots. They are animals, they are dressed up, they are expressing, the different cultures. They're supposed to have a whole backstory even. And they have statues in Global Village. But I just feel that Global Village is so full of stimuli that the mascots are completely overthrown. Like they're completely invisible. No.
Yeah, that's totally true, because only with my third visit, when you mentioned that there are mascots, I was actually aware, and I know that they are mascots. But they're not emphasized, they're not on the tickets, they're not really... I mean, there are some statues, but it's just so much happening that you miss it.
Yeah, and I have the feeling that maybe with the right effort, the mascots could be way more popular. You could actually sell products with them. I think the kids could be interested in them. They deserve more attention than they get right now. And another point for room for improvement, it has to be mentioned, the public transport connection should be way better.
Yeah, and there should be an offer to come back at night. So at 2 a.m.,
yeah,
I think there should be more options.
Let's get to the grumpy minutes. So we always try to discuss also some negatives or some annoyances that we encountered during our experience. I think it's something I mentioned already earlier, but it's very, very present here, is the aggressive sales tactics in some places. I have the feeling that some of those people, especially the men in some of the Arabic pavilions, they are really pushing the stuff into your face, especially when it comes to perfumes and stuff like that. They are very aggressive again.
Spraying you with the perfume.
in the eyes, But that's something I don't really enjoy. But from the other side, you can kind of expect it, because I think it's really embedded in the culture for them to be selling their products like this. The other thing is, I think overall there is just a general very high price point on some stuff over here. Like, for example, buying a bottle of water is just generally going to be 4 to 5 times more expensive than buying it anywhere else. I think also when it comes to the products, even there is a pretty high price point. I do think that you can actually negotiate in very many places, because it is considered more like an open air market. So I think you could actually get good prices in the end. But from the other side, you have to kind of be prepared, and you have to be aware that you're going to spend generally more on products than you would do anywhere else. So it's not like a regular market or anything. It's in particular much more expensive here to just have bites and drinks and buy products. But you kind of sign up for that when you buy the ticket to it.
I can also imagine that the tenants have quite some fee for representing their products. So probably this is the margin on the products.
That's enough negative for now. Let's talk about the highlights of the evening. So we are going to talk about the stuff that comes to mind when we think of this was just amazing. This was memorable. This is what we can take away with a big smile on our face. Mm-hmm. So what is an absolute highlight for you?
So definitely the chance to get to know the Arabic culture a bit more and distinguish different countries between each other, and to be able to see different dresses, styles, food, ornaments, even the perfumes from different regions. They are having different smell, because some of them have more oriental smell, some of them are sweeter, and you can really notice the patterns and focuses.
That's a good way of just overseeing quickly as to what major countries are around the Emirates and what do they actually stand for. What can you find there? What kind of cultural influences can you get from there? That's interesting. For me, definitely a highlight is that I have to say that when we arrived at Global Village, it feels a bit cheesy when you come in, because the theming by day in the sunlight is definitely not on the level of a motion gate. And also this mimetic architecture, it oozes stereotyping. I have to admit that actually gradually it gets better over time, mainly because this park is definitely built to be experienced by night. There's so much emphasis on lighting, and it has to be said that the pavilions and the front facades of the pavilions, most of them are really, really excellently lit. And actually, even though I have seen so much of the lighting in Dubai being pretty kitsch, like for example in Miracle Garden and in many of the family attractions over here, I have to say that Global Village actually looks rather classy. Okay, so let's talk about the rating of this place. So how would you rate this place, Alex?
I think I would give it between 6.5 and 7.
6 would be okay, and 7 would be good.
I would say okay, 7.
7, okay. 7 means the way that I described it is worth the money, worth the time.
Yeah. I would do it once again, even though I was there 3 times already. And you?
I would actually give this place between 7 and 8. So, wow. Which means worth the money, worth the time, and would definitely recommend. So between good and great. It's kind of like a world expo of cultures. Mm-hmm. And yes, of course, it is maybe not representing cultures realistically in every corner. But from the other side, it is just plain fun to be there. It's visually a spectacle. I'm sure that anyone who goes here makes a lot of photos, because it's really a place where you could take amazing photos. And I think also besides that, it's a great place to be outside when in Dubai. Yeah, and definitely for me, it is worth the money and worth the time, because it is relatively cheap to get in. And even if you don't buy anything, I think you're still enjoying yourself. We are going to say if it is for us a trip off, a consider, or a trip on. Mm-hmm. So what would you say?
Trip on.
Okay.
And you?
I think I would also say trip on, because this is actually from all the places that we visited in Dubai, this is the only one where we would go multiple times.
Yeah, we already done it twice together, and we had equally fun, and we stayed till the end again, so it was...
And also I think a good way of looking at it is, would you take, for example, guests that come to Dubai here? Would you take family that would come to Dubai here? And my answer would be yes. I would. I would actually love to show them something like this.
Yeah, I did it actually even so. And they loved it as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And, it gives you also the opportunity to go home with a bag full of stuff that you were not supposed to buy. So it actually is also a place where you could actually, go crazy. You can really go crazy, or you go very cheap. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's up to you.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about what's next. And next up is actually something really interesting, because we are going to Abu Dhabi, which is the capital city of the United Arab Emirates.
Yes, and next park that we're going to visit is Ferrari
World. Yes, exactly. And Ferrari World is a place I'm really, really excited, because Ferrari World is known for its coasters. So it's going to be pretty intense, I think.
You can visit us on triponpodcast.com.
And if you want to reach out to us, there are multiple ways to get in contact with us. So we would love to hear from our listeners.
Please don't hesitate and let us know.
So that leaves us to say, as always, our tip:
go on and plan your next trip.